And today, Ibrahima and I, we are going to be sharing our experiences of using digital technology for monitoring and evaluation at Unbound. More specifically, we are talking about our experience of implementing and adopting poverty's stoplight. Dr. Bird gave a perfect background and introduction to the methodology, so we come in from a more practical perspective, and also our since learning about it about 4 years ago. So in the next 45 minutes, we are hoping to cover four main things. I will kick us off by talking a little bit about where goal development or goal setting fits within Unbound's mission and our program, and what goal setting looked like before poverty stoplight. And I'll move on to talking about what monitoring and evaluation specifically for goal setting also look like at Unbound before poverty stoplight. Ibrahima will then take over and take the bulk of the presentation by talking about transitioning to poverty stoplight, the experiences of onboarding a little bit, as well as the first few glimpses or lessons that we have learned so far from the data that we have been collecting globally. And then finally, we'll end with some of the challenges, limitations that we have faced, and what are our future plans to mitigate those. All right, I was not sure how many of you are aware of Unbound, so I thought a brief slide to talk about our organization is a good idea. So Unbound is an international nonprofit that is headquartered in Kansas City that was founded in 1981. And currently Unbound has presence in about 17 countries, where close to 260,000 or 270,000, I'm not sure about the number, but 260 or 70,000 uh, children, youths, and elders are receiving personal attention and direct benefits in the form of cash transfer. And similar to Children International, this is done through one-on-one sponsorship. The mission of Unbound is to walk with the poor and marginalized of the world. So how do we do that? How do we achieve our mission of helping families create their paths out of poverty? Unbound believes that the smartest path out of poverty is a self-directed one. So families are at the center of making that decisions. They are collaboratively working to identify what are some of their limitations, what are some of the challenges they are facing, what are some of the skill sets that they have, what goals would they like to set to then create their own paths out of poverty. So families are at the center. They are the decision makers because they understand, like Dr. Bird said, they understand more than anyone else what poverty looks like for them. So they are the ones who are making decisions that will help them rise out of poverty. The second aspect that we talked about, and this is where we are going, is goal development. Since even before poverty stoplight, how families are rising out of, creating their paths out of poverty is by creating smart goals. By setting goals and working towards them in their own way, they are carving that path. And then finally, the strong communities is another aspect of our program. I won't get into that much detail, but parents of sponsored members, they gather together in communities or group, and that is a way of holding each other accountable, but also mutually supporting each other. All right, so I hope that with that, that kind of like sets the background as to how Unbound had been from the very beginning, thinking about goal, how it is at the center of our programming. The other thing that I wanted to briefly talk about is this program, what we call program characteristics. As a global organization, we hope that each of our program achieves certain level of characteristics, or there are some things that we hope we are able to do to showcase that we are doing what we said we would do in our mission. And one of those program characteristics, I won't get into all of those, but the one that I've highlighted right there is goal orientation. And it says sponsored members and their families have clear personal goals and realistic plans to achieve those goals. So these are all the spots that I feel like goals have been very deeply integrated into Unbound's mission and Unbound programming since the very beginning. But what does it look like in the field then? It looks very different in different contexts. And especially before poverty stoplight, as each families were making their decisions and then developing their paths out of poverty, the goals also looked very different. I often find myself quoting my colleagues, supervisors, mentors, and I know that one of the quotes that I remember all the time is how we do not have one program, we have 270,000 programs as each family creates their own program to get out of poverty. So with that, the goal setting also looks very different in different contexts. I just picked one example from Antioquia. This was from years ago, it was in 2017. But the booklets that you see in the slides, in each of these booklets, families would write their goals, the goals that they wanted to achieve, that they were working towards. It could be short-term goals, long-term goals. It could be goals for the child who was sponsored through Unbound program, or it could be goals for the family. And for each year, the goals kept changing, evolving. Maybe some were achieved, some were discarded, some were partially achieved. This is a picture that I believe one of my colleagues who worked in evaluation but is now in programming, Melissa, took, where all the staff gathered the booklets together to kind of have a reflection session, and they were creating an evaluation out of it. So you'll see that it was very haphazard, and it was very difficult to aggregate or see any kind of trend or make visualizations or any interventions out of such experience or practice. So what did monitoring look like? So each of those staff members, obviously, they worked, we partner with families. So each of the staff members worked with families to update the goals, help them achieve the goals, coach them, work with them, create opportunities. So there was some level of monitoring that would happen on the grounds. But at the headquarters level, there were certain questions that were being asked as program audits happen periodically. And I'm giving some examples of some of the questions that were used as guides by the auditors when they were on the field and checking the programs. And you'll notice that these questions are focused on whether or not goal setting was happening, whether or not families are able to do that, whether or not they had enough support to do that, rather than being able to actually understand what goals were being set and how families were moving along with the goals. And again, this is such a subjective way of looking at goal setting while monitoring that it would be difficult to aggregate that, or it would be difficult to reflect on that effectively. And then evaluation. Evaluation in Unbound is structured in a three-layer format. The first layer is, as a global organization, we conduct global evaluations from time to time to understand the impact of our program. And each program location has a local evaluator that asks their context-specific questions. And then each family, because they are working towards something, they also have their own desired outcomes. And so from a global level, you can imagine that with the way that goal setting was happening, conducting global evaluations on goal setting was extremely challenging. So it was not something that we thought would be possible. In each program location, these are some of the examples of, again, evaluation questions that were being asked at each program location by the local evaluators. And you'll see again that the evaluation questions were focused on whether or not the families were setting goals, what kind of support were they receiving, does it help them have changed their attitudes or behaviors or knowledge, rather than the trajectory of setting a goal and then making progress towards it. At the individual level, again, with all the families setting their own goals that could be very different from one another, studying that, understanding that, and using that for our reflection and understanding would have been very, very difficult. So as far as deeper reflection of the goals that were being set, it was difficult to do that without a mechanism to actually turn that into a more effective platform, which is where Poverty Stoplight comes in. And Ibrahima, are you ready?
All right, thank you. Thank you, Nimisha. And obviously, I'm the one who's very jealous because I really wish I was there, meeting all of you guys in person physically. But hello, everyone. My name is Ibrahima Ball. I'm a program data analyst at Unbound, and I focus on the Poverty Stoplight project. So the implementation, the technical support, and the use of the data aspect of it as well. So today I'll walk you through the data I work with and how it shapes our approach to poverty alleviation. So imagine if we have data from a community, income levels, education, healthcare access, etc. So my role is to analyze this data and identify the patterns and inform our interventions. So, for example, if education access is low, we prioritize educational initiatives. So I also explore how these indicators intersect with each other. For instance, low income can impact access to education and healthcare, and my goal is to use these data to drive targeted solutions, interventions, just making a meaningful impact in combating poverty. So in that slide, where we talk about the implementation of poverty stoplight, we know that in today's era of pervasive technology, it is imperative to explore how these advancements can positively influence family dynamics. One of the initial hurdles we faced was introducing the survey concept to families. So while participation wasn't mandatory, it was very crucial for us for the families, actually to grasp its significance. So during my recent visit to Kampala, I was in Uganda for a week. Families shared with me enlightening anecdotes about how the survey transformed their perceptions of poverty. They express newfound awareness that poverty is multidimensional and extending beyond mere income, like Dr. Bird just said earlier. So this speaks volumes about the exceptional work really our Kampala staff has accomplished throughout the years. And at the headquarters level, our focus was on training project staff. So we conducted multiple virtual sessions covering survey content and providing the autonomy for staff as well to design their own surveys. So each of our projects have their own version of the survey as well. So with our teams, still with our team's oversight, and additionally, we with the training sessions, we emphasize the proficient use of technology. So, and also communication, because it is essential to appoint individuals for training and onboarding who not only possess the technical acumen, but also exhibit empathy and understanding of diverse family needs as well. And lastly, we ensure the distribution of tablets to the projects and for survey purposes. And that move was significantly empowered. It empowered the families because they were able to select their own goals. So we grant them the autonomy in setting their goals pretty much. And by prioritizing comprehensive training and technology access, we've enabled these families to redefine poverty on their own terms and take charge of their futures. Can we go to the next slide, please?
If you accept it, you should be able to navigate the slide.
Okay.
Except some notification you might have received. If not, I can help you. Let me
Oh
know.
yeah, I did not get it yet.
Yeah, you just have to up there it says Ibrahima is controlling your screen. You just have to accept the. Okay, we'll just click through for you.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, now okay, we have to take the control back. Hold on, Ibrahima.
No worries.
I'm glad we have you here, Ariel.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Preeta. So at this point, we want to embark on a comparative journey between two distinct yet interconnected projects, Lima and Meru. And as we delve into this exploration, we'll uncover the unique characteristics, the challenges, the successes of each of these projects, and shedding light on the diverse landscape of innovation and development. So we can go to the next one. Thank you. So this is a Latin America overview. So this picture provides a concise glimpse of into our work in Latin America. So we've developed a comprehensive dashboard that consolidates data from across the region and offering decision makers easy access to the critical information from any project we're involved in Latin America. So we have multiple dashboards like this. So we do have one for Latin America, one for Africa, and one for Asia. But through this dashboard, decision makers can swiftly navigate through various indicators, dimensions, priorities, and even celebrate the successes achieved by families. It serves as a powerful tool for informed decision making, which enables stakeholders to gain valuable insights and track progress effectively. So by centralizing this data in this manner, we empower decision makers to make data-driven decisions, leading to more targeted interventions and ultimately greater impact into our efforts to combat poverty and improve livelihoods in Latin America. So you can see, for example, here we do have, not seeing clearly, maybe 50% answers were all greens, but we'll dive into that into the next slide. Into next. But yes, so before that, I also wanted to show, so previously I showed you what we see at the headquarters level, but also want to show you what we are seeing at the project level. So what do our project staff see in the data? So at the project level, our staff has direct access to their data through the PS platform. So what that means is that this tool allows them to log in and view specific project data, which enables them to pinpoint the most pressing needs within their own communities. So the projects, for example, I chose Kampala in the organization section. So they will only be able to see the Kampala data. So by leveraging this platform, they can analyze data in real time, telling them the number of families they have, how many surveys were taken, and they can identify really the key areas which require immediate attention as well. So this empowers them to tailor interventions based on accurate, up-to-date information, ensuring that these resources that are allocated are done so efficiently to address the most urgent needs. Ultimately, this targeted approach enhances the effectiveness of our interventions and allows us to make a meaningful impact in the lives of individuals and families within each project or community. We can go to the next slide. So we started with a Latin America review, so we'll just dive a little bit deeper into Lima. So we do have 111,000 families in Latin America, and we have, out of those 111,000, we have 3,200 in Lima. And in the next couple of slides, we'll talk about what the data looks like in Lima, and the data ultimately tells us what poverty looks like in Lima. So we can go to the next slide. All right, thank you very much. So these are the percentages of Lima. So looks like we have 48.7% of green. What that means is, out of all the answers we gathered in the survey, we don't have 48% of all the families having all green across all the indicators. What this means is that out of all the answers, so for example, we can have a survey in Lima. This is just an estimation that has 100 questions, for example, and each family is answering 100 questions. And maybe if we take one family A, for example, they have maybe 30 green answers, 20 yellow, and the rest are red. So this 48.7% takes all the green answers from all our different families, and the denominator will be the total number of answers. So we're telling us pretty much, these graphs telling us we have 48.7% out of all the answers that we gathered through the survey are green in Lima, 36.9% are yellow, and 14.5% are red. So we can go to the next slide. Yes, so this is still the Power BI dashboard that I showed earlier. we do have multiple pages, and this is the indicator and dimension page. So in this dashboard, we can, for example, observe that on the right side, read answers by indicator. Well, we have indicators such as savings, information, and bathroom, credit, water, etc., that constantly appear as the most critical areas of concern across our families. And moreover, by aggregating data at dimension level in the bottom, we can gain valuable insights as well into the overall landscape of poverty within the Lima community. So these aggregated percentages provide a clear picture of which dimension are the most pressing, allowing us to prioritize our interventions effectively as well. So by leveraging this data-driven approach, we can focus on efforts on addressing the most urgent needs. Ultimately, we can maximize the impact of our initiatives here, and we can improve the well-being of the families we serve in Lima. So we can see at the bottom, for example, all these percentages in the answers by dimension color. So it is the graph that is situated at the bottom. These are have the same common denominator. So if you add all of these answers, all these percentages, it will add up to 100. For example, we can see in housing infrastructure, out of all the answers we got, 18.17% of the green answers within all the dimensions belong to housing infrastructure, 1.61 belong to the red, and 8.35% belong to the yellow. But what we can do with these graphs as well, we can dig a little bit deeper. If we don't want to look at the dimensions altogether aggregated, we can select a specific dimension and have a closer look, which we have it on the next slide. Yes, thank you so much. So here we chose maybe the three most pressing dimensions that we've seen. And by most pressing, I mean the dimensions we thought had the most red percent, the highest red percentage. Here, for example, in organization and participation, when we look in the previous graph, we see that 2.6% of all the red answers belong in organization and participation. But if we get to a deeper level and just click on organization participation and want to isolate it, now we have these percentages on a 100% basis, and we are able to see what those 2.6% of the red actually look like. So those 2.6% actually translate to 14.2 within that dimension only. So if we look at organization participation, we can see we have 44.50% of green within that dimension. And we have 41.29% within that dimension. And we did not really, I'm sure, talked about it earlier, but the dimensions are the highest level of classification that we have. And the lower level are indicators. And those indicators were the one that we've seen earlier, like savings, income, etc. And they are all separated into 6 different dimensions. For example, income will belong to income and will belong to income and employment, for example. And if we say room or bedrooms, floors, etc., those indicators would belong to the housing infrastructure. So each dimension has multiple indicators, and when those families take the survey and get those answers, we can classify those answers into these 6 different dimensions and have some percentages out there. And we can use this at the headquarter level, just so how we can actually, you gave it to the staff so they can see what's more pressing in their communities. We can go to the next slide. Yes, another big part, huge part of the survey are the priorities. So each family is required to select some goals at the end of the survey. And the priorities can only be 2 colors. They can either be red or yellow. In this case, in Lima, the top 5 priorities were income from employment, wellness activities, floors, and room. So when the staff sees this data, they can absolutely know instantly where they need to put more focus. Because if we only look at the most red indicators, for example, if we look at income if income was the most red indicator, in Lima, the most red indicators were actually savings, and savings is not on this list. So we do have saving as the indicator that has the most red answers, but still families don't believe that savings is a priority. They chose income as a priority, the most pressing priority. So it is very important for our staffs to look at this section as well, not only focus on the indicators and the colors. It is great to have indicators where we see our family are struggling the most, but it's not because it is the most red indicator, as in had the most answers. That is the most parts right here. And in the bottom right here, you can see that the colors as well. So income is the most pressing priority. But even though it is the most pressing priority, we have a higher percentage of yellow families. So families that chose income as that had income as a yellow um, that chose yellow as an answer that have it at 6.6% compared to families that chose indicator as a red answer at 5.77%. So here we do have income. We have families that chose a yellow indicator as their most pressing need compared to a red one. We can go to the next slide. All right, thank you very much. So after we're done with Lima, we wanted to do the same thing for Meru. And this is a very close, pretty much really the same dashboard with the same tools and the same utility. I would say the one that I showed you earlier for Latin America. The only difference is this one is for Africa. And at the top, you'll be able to see with the decision makers will be able to see. So we have the number of families that we have in Africa that took the survey. So we have 44,000 plus families that took the survey in Africa. So we have different projects in Africa. And in this dashboard, something that is pretty nice that decision makers can do is we do have some filters on the right. So we do have organization there. If we click on organization, we'll be able to select which project we want to see the data of. So we can click organization, go in either Meru or Kampala or Dar es Salaam, etc. We do have also the project, which is the data at the sub-project level. So we can really dig all the way down to the family level if you want to see only data from one subgroup, for example, if you want to talk about a mother's group or etc. So we do have multiple subgroups, not necessarily only sub-projects. And the survey number, I know that after each year, the families will be able to take a follow-up survey, which will help us monitor their progress within the years. So we can go to the next slide. Yes, so for Meru overview, like I said earlier, we do have 44,000 families in Africa, and out of them, 6,400 are in Meru. And we can go to the next slide. Thank you. Yes, so for Meru, the numbers are a little bit different from Lima, but it's the same thing. So we do have 40.7% out of all the answers that we got from the survey that are green, 50.9% out of all the answers that were yellow, and 8.4% that were red out of these 6,400 families. Go to the next slide, please. Yes. So for the indicators and dimension table, so it is the same concept there. So we do have the most red indicators on the right side. So it looks like in Meru, insurance is the most pressing. I wouldn't necessarily say pressing, it's just the most red indicator where families are struggling the most. So insurance, entertainment, budget. And in the middle, we have the yellow. And yellow represents poverty still. But the yellow indicators are the one that we really need to monitor the most because they're the one that could either shift to the left side, become green, or shift to the right side and become red within the year. So these are the one we really need to monitor. So it is still pretty important to pay some close attention to them. And on the left side, we do have the green indicators, so where families are doing better or you feel like there are no poverty. So that's registered voters, identity card. An identity card is really just, it belongs actually to the income and employment dimension. And we do have problem solving, morality, and autonomy. And at the bottom, we do have the dimensions and how they are repartitioned by colors as well. So when we look at the first two, for example, housing, infrastructure, education, and culture, we can clearly see those three actually. If we can add health and environment to it, they have all over 2% of red. So I believe those are the three that I chose to take a closer look at on the next slide. Yes, thank you. So we do have housing infrastructure. It did represent 2.19% of the red answers, when we get there, we are able to see what it looks like if we just aggregate it all over and we use only the answers within housing infrastructure as our denominator. So this is the 100% view. So we do have 28.70% out of all the answers, which is pretty low for a dimension compared to what we've seen for Lima. So in Lima, when we looked at those dimensions, even if they had a very high percentage of red, there were definitely a higher percentage of green there. So for education and culture, it's a little bit better. We do have 36% of greens, and then health and environment, we have 30% of, of greens. But the main difference here, I would say, Lima, is we do have a higher number of yellow indicators, yellow answers within the indicators, which belong to the dimensions. So we can go to the next slide. Yes, same thing. So here for the priorities in Meru, insurance. So insurance here in this case was as well the most read indicator. So we do have some projects where the most read indicator is actually the highest priority. So like I said, it's very important to take a look at both of those different sections within the survey, both the most read and the priorities to have an idea of what the families actually choose as their most pressing needs. I don't believe that it's our place to choose just based on what we see on the data. Sometimes say, okay, this is the most pressing need because it's the most read indicator. But in this case, it is true. So we have insurance as the most read indicator and also the most pressing need that the family chose themselves, because these priorities are some answers that these families choose to set up as their goals. And at the bottom right, you can see also the biggest difference here will be within our priorities, we don't really have a lot of yellow. So most of the families that chose their priorities chose a red indicator. So insurance, 9%, 9.21%, its total was 10%. So yellow represents only less than 1% out of all those answers. Same thing for budget, a little bit over 2% of yellows, but have a high 6% of reds. So in Meru, looks like families that chose their priorities are really struggling in those areas. Not saying that they were not struggling, but they are actually very red indicators that it chose as their priorities. So we can go to the next slide. Yes, thank you. So here I'm doing a very quick comparative analysis of everything that we've seen. So this will be a refresher, very summary-ish of everything we talked about. But there are some similarities within these two projects. So when we look at income and insurance, we can see that both regions prioritize financial stability. So whether it's through increasing their income opportunities in Lima or obtaining insurance coverage in Meru, this reflects a shared concern for economic security among those families. In those two projects, we do also have wellness activities and budget. So both communities emphasize activities or strategies aimed at promoting overall well-being. So in Lima, this is manifested in wellness activities, while in Meru, budgeting effectively serves a similar purpose. And finally, we also have room and ventilated kitchen, which are two different indicators, but both areas highlight the importance of adequate housing conditions. So in Lima, the focus is on ensuring sufficient rooms, while in Meru, having a well-ventilated kitchen is prioritized for health and safety reasons. So despite these differences, obviously we have in specific indicators, both regions share common goals, improving their conditions. So because while Lima and Meru may differ in their approaches and focal points, they are united by a shared vision of enhancing the well-being and the livelihoods of their residents. So you can go to the next slide. Yes, and there are also differences, not only similarities. So in when we talk about maybe formal employment, garbage, those two indicators. So in Lima, there's an emphasis on securing the formal employment as means to enhance financial stability, whereas in Meru, managing garbage is a priority, likely for environmental and health concerns. We also have floors, power connection. So in Lima, one of the priority was having a quality flooring, which is essential for living. In contrast, in Meru, they place more importance on having a reliable power connection, likely for access to electricity, which is crucial for various aspects of daily life. So the Lima project reported a high percentage of red indicators compared to Meru, which indicates potentially greater challenges in certain areas. And the Meru project exhibited a high percentage of yellow indicators. suggesting a mix of strengths and challenges in the survey in that region. Lima prioritized indicators such as human rights and schooling, while Mary focused on registered voters, identity card, and Lima project showed a concentration of red indicators in organization participation, while Meru exhibited red concentration in education and culture, health, environment. And lastly, the priorities in Lima focus more on income, formal employment, wellness activities, while Meru prioritized insurance, budget, garbage, ventilator kitchen, and power connection. So now I will invite Nimisha to speak about the next slide, a little bit more about the evaluation with poverty stoplight.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, thank you, Ibrahima. So I'll just jump in really quickly here to talk about how the kind of data that Ibrahima is showing presents an opportunity for us to now reflect more deeply or in an informed way as far as goal setting goes for families. So with at the individual level with the life map that Dr. Bird showed a sample of, and then at the community level, the kind of information that Ibrahima is showing for each context, and then at a global level, being able to see all of those combined together. I think that presents an opportunity for us to again look at it in a deeper way and fits very well with our evaluation structure that I had explained about earlier, where at the global level we will be able to see the global view and conduct global evaluations now with more information on the dimensions and indicators that were selected and this um, transition that are made by the families through those dimensions and indicators at each of the community level, again with information that is relevant to their context. Interventions that are more focused to target poverty in their specific context can be developed, and then at the family level with their own life map, um, and being able to reflect on that and see how they can move along so that hopefully all of those turn green someday. So at each of the levels that we were struggling with before poverty stoplight, this kind of fits and hits all those three levels for evaluation. So with that, back to you, Ibrahima.
All right, thank you, Nimisha. I was struggling with the video there a little bit, but thank you. So we also have challenges. Data quality, it's a big one. So when families are responsible for providing data directly, there is a potential for mistakes. So which can compromise the accuracy, the reliability of the collected data. And there was an instance actually in Guatemala, if I'm not mistaken, where there were some data entry issues which made the socioeconomic section of the data almost unusable. So they are trying to fix it within the follow-up survey to correct a lot of those. So that is a big issue that we've been experiencing, just like the time-consuming process. So a a facilitator must sit down with each family individually, resulting in a tedious and resource-intensive process. So gathering survey responses one by one significantly extends this overall time required for data collection. Um, Also, we do have the acquisition process itself that poses challenges. So data acquisition involves a manual process of downloading surveys individually, which not only consumes time, but also increases the workload as well. So cleaning this acquired data further extends this process, and as inconsistencies, and errors must be addressed meticulously as well. Lastly, we have the language barrier, which compound the challenges of manual data collection. So surveys are not automatically translated within the platform. So it leads to difficulties in understanding sometimes or just cleaning the data. So this language barrier not only impacts the efficiency of the cleaning process, but also prolongs the time required for data preparation. So we can go to the next slide. I think it's the last one. Yes, so for the future directions, these are mostly solutions, potential solutions for the challenges I mentioned. So for the monitoring app, so we have a plan to use an app aimed at enhancing family monitoring. So this app will feature push notifications to remind families of their goals, and it will break down larger goals into smaller objectives, so more manageable tasks. So if we leverage this technology, we aim to empower the families to to stay on track with their goals and foster a sense of accountability and motivation. And also our collaboration with Foundation Paraguay, we're so proud to work with Foundation Paraguay because together we're working to connect databases for a smoother data pipeline. So this collaboration is focused on streamlining the data cleaning process and also reduce the time spent on data management. So this will solve many issues I stated earlier, like data acquisition, the translation as well. So if we combine our resources expertise, we're striving to optimize really our data infrastructure and improve the efficiency of our projects. The third one was the modular survey design. So in our commitment to simplify this whole process of the collection of data, we also want to implement a modular survey design. So the survey will be pretty much broken down into multiple parts that are not required to be done all together. So this will allow for greater flexibility for the families, for the staff, and it will just really ease the workload of our staff and the family as well. So this approach not only enhances the user experience, but for families, but also improves the accuracy as well. So maybe we had those issues in Guatemala because it was just a lot for the families to just sit down for a couple hours and do everything at once. So this will really complete accuracy of our data collection efforts and make it less time consuming at the same time. And lastly, we do have a intervention tracking sheet, and this is to monitor the effectiveness of our interventions over time. So Poverty Stoplight introduced these tracking sheets, and this sheet will help us identify which interventions yield the best results and will facilitate data-driven decision making as well. So by tracking outcomes systemically, we can continuously refine our strategies and maximize the impact of our initiatives as well. And this will be pretty great in a couple of years when we have a lot of data on all the interventions that are working. Maybe if we do intervention of budget, we'll be able to see in a couple of years, okay, anytime we do this, the family goes from red to yellow in 4 to 6 months. And if we do it that way, it takes a little bit longer, it doesn't work at all. So these are all pretty great things I'm very excited about in the future with Unbound and Foundation Paraguay as well. You can go to the next slide. I think this was the last one, but yes, but in conclusion, if Nimisha, you don't have nothing to add, just I want to express my gratitude. I know we had a lot of technology issues. I'm not, I do work remotely, so I'm very used to just presenting online, but I did not see the notification. But yes, I just want to thank you for your time and your attention today. And it has been just a pleasure. I really wish I was there physically in person to work with all of you and just trying to provide insight into my work with Poverty Stoplight. Just know the importance of data, really, the optimization of it in our mission to erase poverty, not only alleviate, like Dr. Bird said. So thank you all for your engagement, for your interest and the efforts. And I will leave it to Nimisha, but if you have any questions as well, or would like to learn more, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm always happy to continue the conversation.
Thank you.